Hey everybody, welcome. This
What's
is
happening?
hey, this one's being done under our new name now, Signal to Noise. So welcome to the Signal to Noise podcast, man.
Yeah, no, it's awesome.
Yeah, we're looking
It's,
forward
it's
to carrying this new flag for a while. So
yeah. We'll get some swag soon enough.
yeah,
We'll
yeah,
make it
yeah,
formal. But
yeah.
yeah,
I know somebody who does that kind of thing, so that should be easy to it should
yeah,
be easy to
it
do.
needs to pull off.
So Chris, why don't we introduce what we're going to be talking about today? Because
Yeah. So first of all, yeah, Google slash Mandiant, they come up with their bulletins, and usually it's usually something you want to read anyway. So they came out with their intelligence report on May 11th, and they call it the AI Threat Tracker. And they go into like a real world example of how AI was used to exploit, I know, find and exploit a 0-day vulnerability.
yeah,
So this isn't one of those where, hey, we talked about it at some black hat presentation or something like that. This is one that was actually done in the wild. And so this threat report goes into quite a bit of detail. So if you're watching this, read it. We're not going to go through it line by line.
right.
We're going to go over some, and there's a lot of stuff built into it. But this is as much about, hey, this is what we saw, but this is what you should expect things are going to look like going forward. So,
100,
and we've been talking
100%.
about it. Yeah, we've
Yeah.
been talking about it. I
Well,
mean,
we started waving the flag last year, right? But I mean, this is the kind of thing that we're going to see. I'm going to put it out there so that at least you and I are going to get credit for it. But we're going to go. There's a new term that you need to add to your vocabulary. We're going to go from 0 hour. I mean, 0 day. See, I just blew it. I just blew it. So
oh
we're going
well.
to go from 0 day reporting to 0 hour reporting as this technology evolves. You mark my words. Uncle Bob's telling you, write that term down, 0 hour, because there's going to come a time when these things are coming at that kind of frequency rate, and that's just the way this is going to go for a while. I mean, it's
Yeah, and it's also in the supply chain stuff. So I mean,
right.
there has not been a day that the supply chain stuff is not coming up and coming across,
Yeah,
my computer in like a real time incident. So
yeah,
yeah, it is. It's not going. This is not some kind of fluke, not some kind of
nope,
trend, not something that the government's going to be able to get in and stop.
yeah.
This
It's
is
not a
this is serious
fad.
stuff. It's
This
not
is
a fact.
this is
Yeah,
a trend. It's not a fad. That's
yeah.
exactly
And
right.
again, we'll reiterate that
Yeah.
developers are the target here. I mean, that's just it. I mean, that's the easiest right now. It's just the soft spot that they're all aiming for.
Well, there, I like we talked about this before. I can't believe we've been talking about this since like October last year. But the development, OPSEC, all that, all op devs, sec dev, all of the development channels that are being, that are obviously in play, they're being taken advantage of. And program, it seems odd to say that programmers are the most susceptible to this because, again, if you're a programmer, and I'm speaking for myself, the reason we go into programming is we like to do a little bit of work to build a program and then let all that crappy work be done by the program, right? So we're lazy by nature because
Hmm.
we would rather have the machine do the work instead of us do it. Well, but that builds some characteristics into you as a human being about, look, I don't, maybe they're not paying attention to this. Clearly they're not, because we've been talking about this now for 6 months. And the attack primitive that we talked about back when we were doing the ID disaster. I think that was
That's
the
what you
episode
call
we
it.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ID disaster was about the fact that they were exploiting these, the startup sequence and original configuration that goes on in development environments, Python or Visual Studio or whatever. And this kind of this has elements of that. Now it's going to cover more than just that. Bottom line, though, I mean, when you get right down to it, the part that's important for you to see here, because again, this goes back to the mythos, disclosure a few months ago about, hey, we've got a model that has basically found vulnerabilities in every browser and operating system on the planet, and it was so bad that they felt responsible and did not want to put that out to the public. That's how
Yep.
that's how bad it was. I mean, when you got a commercial entity that says, "Hey, you know what? This thing's pretty dangerous. Maybe we shouldn't just show everybody. Maybe we should kind of do this in a more controlled way." They were standing on the edge of that cliff, looking over the side, going, "I don't know if I want to free fall this one. I think maybe I want to back up and plan this a little better." But this falls, what we all knew when that came out is that, yeah, that's a tool right now that only certain people are going to have access to based on, Anthropic's, mission about how they were going to go about it. But we knew that elements of that were going to start finding themselves getting manifest in other LLMs, because just the fact that people know that that exists starts other people down the road of trying to develop the same sorts of things or create the same sort of things.
or somebody that has it jailbreaks it, then gets it somebody else.
Yeah.
And we've seen, I think OpenAI's now, they've had a response, then you have the competitors responding to this with equivalent or better solutions too.
Right.
Even some, even Microsoft's getting into this security kind of stuff. So they're all falling into place.
Yeah.
So you're right. It's not going away.
No.
And the stuff's not going to stay in the right hands for that long, for sure.
No, and we knew that. We knew that that was going to be the case. But this one sort of brings. I mean, I think this one shines a flashlight on it full tilt, right? Because again, hackers really didn't do anything. They just used AI to find a vulnerability, and not a vulnerability in, hey, it wasn't engineered correctly for what it was designed to do. It was one of those, hey, it was engineered, but it was engineered with a flaw. So there's a difference between a vulnerability and a flaw, right? Now, a vulnerability is something that people know is a bad thing that can help exploit stuff, and a flaw is something no one's uncovered yet that really they pushed it past its design spec and found a way to get it to react differently than it was designed to do. And that's what this AI found. It found that there was a flaw in. Now, here's the trick for this particular one to work before everybody freaks the hell out, because I realize that when you talk about this shit, people kind of personify this, right? And they freak the hell out about, oh my God, the
start pulling
AI's
plugs.
coming to get me. And just let's all go back to the Stone Age. Well,
start looking for property in Wyoming.
Yeah, that's find your nearest prepper community and try to buy a slot, right? But in this case, they had the source code for this, so make sure that we qualify this. In order to do what they did, they had the source code that they could run through, an AI engine, an LLM, and that
to locate this,
to find that flaw, right? And so,
but this source code stuff it's getting stolen every day.
Yeah,
so,
right.
That might be the same. That might not, maybe not in this particular case, but I mean, some of it seems like the easiest thefts now are source code thefts. Just get in there and take it.
Yeah, but why has that been on the rise? Yeah, why has that been on the rise? Because humans don't, nobody likes analyzing other people's code. So we didn't have a problem. But now when you got LLMs that can sit there for hour after hour, day after day, year after year looking at that code, you don't give a shit. You're just going to throw the source code in there and say, hey, I want you to figure out if there's any way that we can get around this and make it do something that we want, that wasn't intended to do, and just turn it loose. I know I'm oversimplifying it, but the point is that's basically what was going on. And so these guys found it. They found a way to be able to, exploit this particular piece of software because of a flaw in the way it was engineered. And so we're going to break down kind of how that went down, and then sort of tie it up with all the other things like Chris was just saying. All of those GitHub repo, incursions that have happened over the last 6 months. I mean, you guys have heard about it. The NPM modules have been under attack, from the original Shia-Lud worm way back in October, November. It's done nothing but accelerate, and people have come at it from different ways, but they're all after the same thing. Once they saw the success of that, to be able to harvest secrets and API keys and tokens and all of those other things that are the connective tissue of making a software system work. Once they saw the success of the original doing that, then everybody's jumped on that bandwagon, and they've just found different tools to use. It was Truffle Hog in that particular situation, but it was Trivy and one of the more recent.
That's right.
And one of the most recent occurred. By the way, both do the same thing. They're designed to help you make safer code by checking your code for secrets and tokens that are exposed. But the bad guys know that. They use it. It's a living off the land attack. It's harvesting all of those things because nobody has discipline about rotate. We can't get people to use MFA. Trying to get them to rotate their API keys is a little bit outside of the scope of which most humans realize they need to do on a more regular basis. I think these kind of examples show why that it's really necessary to tighten up your how you do this. So anyway, this is how this all got kind of set up is that Chris was talking about that report came out about May 11th, and the Google guys, the threat intelligence group at Google spotted it basically, and then and then figured out how to thwart it, did the smart thing about notifying who should have been involved and getting ready to kind of field the protection against this particular flaw, and they did it. So in this
That's right.
case, it wasn't a massive deployment, and it wasn't a massive detonation across all of that ecosystem. It was more limited, and they only because they caught it. Now I'm going to say, here's what I guess. It's the speculation. So if you don't like it, then I'll give you your money back that you paid to watch this.
That's right.
But if you remember correctly, it was about 6 or 8 weeks ago when Mythos allowed Google and all these other guys to use their model, right? Those were some of the very first names, that had access to this Mythos model. So I would not be surprised. My speculation is that some of what it is that we're seeing now is an offshoot of them incorporating that into their threat hunting and
Yeah.
bug and vulnerability hunting. That's what my guess is, because they got ahead of this, and that has not been the storyline that we've been talking about for one. We haven't had anybody say, "Hey, we figured this shit out and plugged it before all hell broke loose." This is the first time I've seen that.
Well, this is a tough one too. I mean, this is kind of the chicken and the egg, right? I mean,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, it's like, hey, okay, you got Mythos. It can discover this, but at the same time,
yep,
it's helped identify this stuff and stop it from happening. And that's going to be the name of the game going forward. You think
yep,
you're going to have some really smart dudes back in the back cranking stuff out and trying to equal the productivity that these AI LLMs and other
yep,
things are doing. You're crazy.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
100%.
it's the way
I
of the
mean,
world.
so and basically what happened here is that they found this 0-day because it was a way it figured out a way to bypass the two-factor authentication on an open source admin tool. Now we've talked about several open source admin tools here recently, cPanel being one of them. That was very
It's
recent.
it's almost like open source admin tool is almost a bad name now.
Yeah, everything's a bad name. I can't hardly think
Yeah.
of anything where I feel like, oh, we're
I might
100% locked
actually,
down.
if somebody's pissing me off, I'm gonna go, dude, you're acting like an open source admin tool. Might be my new term now. You're an OSAT. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and
That's
this one.
very osatic of you to say something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there
we're
we
going to
go.
change our whole vocabulary because of how this shit's rolling out, right?
That's
So
exactly right.
I told you, as we talked about before, this was a logic flaw, and more or less what it did. At its core, it was a hard-coded trust assumption that was built into this admin package, and it was once it figured out that there was a hard-coded assumption in there, that the developer put in, then that's when it was all syntactically correct. I'm not saying that they did something
Yeah,
wrong. It was just, it's like programmers do. Sometimes they hard code things in. Probably was done early on in the development of it. Never really
that's
thought about
exactly
front
right.
end,
To
right?
make
And it gets
testing
left.
easier, to,
Yeah.
yeah, whatever. Yep.
Yeah. Cause it didn't stand out to anybody who was doing code audits on it or anything, right? So, I mean, if a human looked at it, they would go, okay, I see what you're doing. I know why you're doing it. That's probably okay, but that's because they're not thinking like an
And they
admin,
might even,
right?
they may have thought like, hey, look, that's there, but who the hell's ever going to know that? Or
Yeah.
who can take those? Who's going to even know those are the steps you have to take?
Well,
But
and this admin tool was built a long time ago, originated a long
exactly.
time ago.
Well, and
So
a lot of the stuff we're talking about is that way,
yeah,
right? It's,
yeah, 100%. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's all legacy systems that people have aged out on. So all of the real knowledge or institutional knowledge that helped build them, those people have aged out and aren't around to
I
give
think
you
we're
that
going to
kind
come
of
up with a new
context.
term for that because I think, in a couple of years, if your system's like 5 years old, it's going to be legacy.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
don't disagree. Yeah,
So we'll have to call them like, I don't even know what to call it, something stupid like it's a geriatric system or something. Yeah. that's
it's
AARP level.
AARP. I was going to say it's
AARP
AARP.
level
Yeah,
code, man.
yeah, yeah,
But anyway,
yeah. Yeah. Again, because it was a flaw in the way this was done, none of the security scanners are going to catch anything like this, right? They're not going to see, because they don't see it as a vulnerability. It's coded in there. It looked like it was premeditated. How are they going to know that from a logic standpoint, it opens up a possibility of being exploited later? They wouldn't know that. So again, how many software systems are out there with that kind of shit in it? I mean, there are going to be a lot.
no,
We can
you
all
know
agree
this.
this ain't the only one on the planet, right? So
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, you could, this whatever you want to call it, like this unintentional backdoor, or there's a lot of things you could kind of phrases. There's a lot.
Yeah,
Like it's, yeah. Because again, people develop the stuff not even thinking
yeah,
there's a
right.
possibility that'd be a risk.
Yeah, yeah. And so the way this got caught, because that's important. How did this even
Yeah,
get caught? Well, what Google got a hold of the exploit script. So they got a hold of the exploit script. And the thing that was obvious when they got a look at the exploit script is that how did they know AI was involved? That's really the question. How did they know AI was involved in this? Well, when they got a hold of the exploit script and got a look at it, it had all of the telltale signs that we know by nature now. We all know that M dashes indicate that somebody's using AI to do
that's
something,
right.
right? And in this case, it was really funny. The LLM that helped build this, first of all, their Python was formatted beautifully. In other words, it was textbook formatting on code. So no human was involved. We know that already because human programmers don't document shit or format it worth a damn anyway. So when it comes looking at you gorgeous, then you're already tipped off that something was involved in that coding, refactoring it or whatever. But the other thing that was really interesting is that it basically hallucinated a CVSS score and had it as a part of the information associated with the exploit script. So it literally had hallucinated and says, "Hey, this is CVSS. Here's the CVSS score for this vulnerability," and it just made shit up. It made up the CVSS score and all of that sort of stuff. But when the Google guys saw it, they went, "Oh shit, okay, this has to be an LLM because I mean, who else makes up a CVSS score?" So that's really what gave it away was a couple factors that humans would notice right away were indicative.
Uh-oh.
Well, they hallucinated.
You went silent for about 20 seconds and then flicked off and back on.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll watch it on the editing. I can edit out.
Yeah, but I think you're saying a bunch of good stuff though.
Well, I can start. I can go back to it. So because
Yeah,
it had
yeah,
to do
go
with
back to it.
CVS,
Yeah.
work. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So the big deal here is the reason that Google caught it was for a couple reasons. One is that the damn Python code that was a part of this exploit was formatted perfectly,
Right.
right? So that lets the humans out. Programmers don't format anything perfectly, right? So that's one
Even
thing.
on your even if you're on the spectrum, you still don't do it
That's
perfectly. So
correct, 100%.
yeah.
So the now you could find somebody who was who was meticulous enough to do that, but when you combine that with the fact that in the scripting they had a made up hallucinated CVSS score, well, now you really kind of understand. Now you definitely understand that. Oh, okay, so this was probably an LLM involved because it was able to hallucinate this whole damn thing. So that was a big giveaway. And the thing that's kind of that particular detail is worth talking about because AI assigned a numerical risk rating and everything to this vulnerability, and this vulnerability didn't exist as a CVSS score, right? Because it wasn't.
Yeah.
So, it's a it was a really great forensic fingerprint for why this was AI generated, obviously. So we all know the reasons for that. So, and then of course Google responsibly kind of put this out there. The vendor, they went to the vendor. They let them know ahead of time that they'd found this thing. It had not detonated yet. Vendor made a patch, and then all of that vendor's users were notified before they actually communicated this particular breach. So, which is that's a hell of a lot better than what we've seen in the past. But this is how it's going to be. I'm just letting I mean, everybody needs to understand this is how it's going to be on a go forward basis. So,
Yeah, and I think this is you know, I'm gonna try to get on my soapbox here, but this is where the security community and sharing is gonna come in, you know. I mean, as smaller security providers, we're not going to have the resources, the teams or whatever that the Googles of the world are. And there's a lot of our clients that aren't going to spend the money or even be on the radar for Google to provide services to. But this is where sharing this type of information, understanding it will help, obviously, responding more quickly and protecting people.
yeah,
But for Bob and I, we have been talking about this a lot, and
yeah,
this dev code, and I can just tell you that I've heard experiences from other individuals that have been going through some of this supply chain stuff that we've been talking about, and these people are developers, and It's incredibly stressful. I mean, we're talking about people that have been doing this for 20 plus years,
Yeah, that's right.
never expected their world to be turned upside down in this manner this quickly.
Yeah.
It's always like, hey, it's going to happen to somebody else, not us. They'll learn their lesson. We'll learn from their lesson, so it won't happen to us. But it's happening incredibly fast. I mean, I remember when ransomware kind of kicked in and kind of took off. It took a much longer time for it to do that than what in my opinion is going on here with the supply chain stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yep.
then you get these bigger, and you get these groups that are just they're just going, man. They're not stopping. They're not taking bus. Yeah, we used to see some of those ransomware operators do that. They'll take some time off, go on
Right.
vacation, whatever. Maybe stop entirely and maybe rebrand down the road. These guys are just going and going and bragging about it and going and going and bragging about it, and they're making money off of it. So
Yeah. A lot.
yeah, a lot of money.
So something to keep in mind. All right, now this is software that was written by human beings that's being exploited. So just to keep this in the back of your mind, we keep talking about how AI is now able to generate code, right, and write software. Where did it learn how to do that? Well, it learned how to do that by all of the information that normal programmers have used to do that in the past. And it uses examples from existing software packages that were written by humans. So it's been taught with a very large digest of both, you know, educational material, but also practical material of people utilizing the language and the syntax and the semantics to build things. So when you do AI, my question, my point being in this, if you let AI build your code for you, how are you sure that it's not building in vulnerabilities like this? Because it learned from the people who have built vulnerabilities into their
It might
software.
assume that's the way to do it.
It
Yeah,
may,
that's
yeah,
exactly right.
that's
Yeah.
exactly right. And that it's two different things to be training it up on methodology about how to do things. It's a whole nother thing to use the inference engine that's in an LLM to try to spot vulnerabilities. It's not going to do all of it. It's not going to do those things simultaneously. So my concern is that a lot of these vibe coded solutions are going to have, you're going to have vulnerabilities built into them by default because that's what the material that it was trained on, had in it to a certain extent. So to your point, it's not going to think it's wrong. So I'm concerned that what we're doing is that we're going to hockey stick on software being written by other people other than normal programmers. That's what's happening. That is happening. And then
Yeah.
we don't really know the ramifications of that right yet because of situations like this where an LLM is used to find a vulnerability. My question is if it was able to find a vulnerability, why couldn't it, which I get this is what Mythos is really doing. Somebody needed to turn loose that on all of these systems to find these
Yeah.
vulnerabilities and then come up with the patches to the vulnerabilities as we go. So I feel
It's
like
almost like you just turn it on, just get it over with. Like just tell us everything right now
so
so we can fix it
well,
all.
that's if you got a new girlfriend, you say, look, what do you hate about me right now? And then you
Well,
can work on it all at one time. If she's, it'll be miserable if it gets dribbled out to you over the course of 5 years. So
or
I'd rather
what
just know
what
everything up
ST,
front.
what STDs do you have right now? Let's address
let's,
those
let's
before
go.
we go any further. So that's my analogy.
There's your analogy. So yeah,
Yeah, so let's we'll get into like, hey, look, if who's impact, we've
yeah,
kind of talked about the philosophical side or what needs to be
right.
done in the practical sense. Anybody using LiteLLM, this is for you. You need to check your
Yes,
version.
that's
You need
great.
to rotate every credential if you're running that. So don't waste
A-
any
a-
wasting time.
assume breach. At this point, you need to
Yeah,
assume
assume
breach.
breach. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We were
So go.
at this
Yeah.
time. Yeah, this
Assume
is
breach.
this is like decades later.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, in pre-AI times.
Yeah.
Um, hunt for TeamPCP IOCs. We talked about that. So there in
Right.
our notes on documentation, you can see specifically what those
Right.
are.
Right.
This was, again, important. Treat AI agent skills and those MCP server configs as code. I mean,
Yep. That
that's
is
what
what
they
they are.
are.
Yeah.
So you need to guard them. You need to, secure them correctly,
Yep.
and just understand that that they're worth their weight in gold.
Yep.
Update your phishing training. So I have seen some providers out there do so with AI, but if you're cybersecurity training that's revolved around phishing, it doesn't include any kind of AI or AI modules, or if you're an organization that doesn't do kind of the monthly training, gets it all done in one fell swoop, and that was 6 months ago. No, man, you need to start training. You need to train your people now
Yeah.
on this
Right.
type of stuff. And then if you have developers, you need to definitely get training specifically for this for them. I mean,
Yep.
and
Yep.
you need to write it. You need to write it. You need to update their job descriptions to
Yep.
make sure that they're responsible for this stuff because this is the new world. And then pull your CI/CD secrets inventory right now. If
Yeah.
you don't know what secrets are accessible from your build pipelines, guess what? TeamPCP probably does already. So,
Yep.
but yeah, that's it. So, we also get into do we have much of a difference with the LMs, or they are all kind of in sync on this one?
They were pretty, since this is more of a high level, again, this
Yeah.
was kind of a high level touch. So yes, I'm going to say that most of them, most of
Yeah.
them,
What are they going to say, right? I mean, the report is a
right.
report, so they're going to be like, then none of them are going to say the report is wrong,
Yeah.
and it was done it was done by analysts, so it's going to be kind of checked and rechecked. So nothing really to talk about there,
Talk
but
about that. Right.
just yeah, another day in paradise with this stuff. Get used to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So we ran an IR game for an MSP day before yesterday, because they wanted to test their internal group. And I ran a AI. It was a third party compromise with an AI kicker, as I call it, on the end of it. So it was just what we talked about. It was an npm module that affected an application piece of software that they use. It established, we know how that worked. It established a C2 channel using the crypto network to be able
Yeah.
to get that
Oh,
endpoint. And then a malicious LLM was used to do things at line speed, automate the ripping of data and everything right out of the organization. So and I will tell you, the MSPs the MSP that took part in it, they look like deer in the headlights,
yeah, yeah,
right? It was because like it never occurred to them how this was really going to impact them. So when Chris tells you that you need to get some practice, and you need to get practice from some diversified scenarios that really layer on this AI and supply chain sort of scenarios into the process, you need to do that, and you need to do that pretty quickly because it's a whole different world. Because they were going, well, how do I monitor for this? And I'm going, well, there's not a lot of watch points. These LLMs will blend this traffic in with normal traffic, so you can't
yeah,
really pick it off from that
yeah,
angle. I said, I'm going to tell you something. We are forced now to go back to when I started in network engineering, where all we had to work with was a network baseline about how much data and/or transactions were being run from one thing to another.
yeah.
That was a baseline sort of approach. We didn't have any other tools,
No.
but we're almost back to that now to kind of monitor for this high volume transaction count that goes on when LLMs
Yeah,
are.
and I've been involved in some conversations about, hey, you can just this monitor for this stuff. This stuff is
Yeah, it's not.
not your typical monitoring stuff, right? I
No,
mean,
no.
I could definitely see some solutions coming as a response to this type of stuff. But
Yeah,
if you think like just your normal security operations centers watching for this kind of stuff, nope, nope,
nope,
nope, nope. This
nope,
is
nope.
deeper behind the scenes. Yeah, yeah. And I just think, we've always treated development as, hey, that's development. Everything goes in production is production. No, now your development is production. So,
Yeah, yeah. You have to be worried about that side of the ball too.
yeah,
100%. Yeah. So
yeah,
again, that's really where we come down on this. We're putting all of this will be uploaded. There'll be a LinkedIn article. In the
yeah,
LinkedIn article is a link to go to the documentation stack that's on Dropbox for this. You can download all the reports that we use that were generated from the LLMs and the executive summary. It will have the IOCs that you could chase down. There's information about TeamPCP in there. There's information about a number of these related incidents in this documentation for this episode. So go pull all
yeah.
that down, and that's all we can offer you. Look, we've got the information. We're putting it out there for you. We're putting it in an easy place to find. We're telling you why it matters. It's up to you from that point forward. But this is our new reality, so you might as well get used to it.
That's right. All right.
All right.
That's it for today.
Yeah, man. See you next time. This is our
Yep.
episode 20. This is episode 20 for us. So we're
We're getting
moving
there,
right
man.
along.
We're
Yeah.
not, we're not to Joe Rogan numbers yet, but we're getting there.
No, no. We only got 6 more episodes, and we're halfway through a year, so that's cool.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thanks,
See you,
everyone.
everybody.